That was much better. Congratulations. Oh, if you were here just before COVID, it would have been about 2 feet lower. We've actually lowered the floors, if you can believe it. Exactly. To be fair, if you were here in 1577 when it was built originally, you wouldn't actually even be allowed in here. This is for all the goods and the stocks, the saffrons and the spices and the jewels that England didn't steal. Didn't? I said didn't. Thank you all so much for coming tonight. This is the first of our literary events here on the Golden Hind, and it is amazingly sold out for all you lovely people, and not because of me, unfortunately, but of this wonderful man who has written a very strange ode love letter to London, and I'm very excited he's here with us this evening. So please give another raucous applause for Christopher Fowler. And you can use the mic.
Okay, yeah, I can do it.
You have dulcet tones, I'm just loud and abrasive.
There's a lot of bookmarks in that book. Oh my god.
Is there? Yes. There are some people who fill books out. These are the bits that I enjoyed the most and the funniest. Not that it isn't all funny and completely amazing. I thought we would start, and it is as a book about London, with you kind of sharing with us a little bit about your connection and your kind of passion, if that's the right word to use, for the intensity that you have for London.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm in London, I come from Greenwich.
You're from Greenwich?
Yeah.
That's where I live now.
So I grew up virtually inside the Cutty Sark, because
you started the fire back in the
I haven't been there since the fire.
Oh, you should go, it's great.
I used to love it because it smelled of tobacco and wood and tarry rope and things like that. And so it was there, or the Maritime Museum. So and my family were my brothers, my uncles were Thames lightermen. So there's a sort of, if you were in Greenwich, you were connected to the river some way. And then my sister-in-law actually looked up our family tree and said, oh, have you noticed you've only moved 500 yards in 300 years? I was kind of horrified about. And I'm always making notes on London as a kid, and then when I started the blog, I started keeping more and more notes, and then I started kind of collecting very strange books on London. Not that usual, how many double-decker buses can you get inside St Paul's, but
a fact you use liberally in this.
Liberally.
Liberally.
Just the weirder books. So.
What was the weirdest book that you collected? Because you've got quite a big collection, don't you?
Yeah, lion hunting in London is quite unusual.
Is that casual sport? Or?
Well, actually, it's stone lions, so it's a bit of a cheat. There's a great one called London in Detail, which is every old London doorknob. Yeah, it should be. It's doorknobs, knockers, handles.
Well, there's a lot of
architraves.
Yeah, that's amazing. So when did you start your library of London collecting? Because it seems to be quite vast now. Have you always been a collector of books, or is it London?
Yeah, but I had to sneak them in.
Why?
Because my parents. There was a time when you didn't read too much because that would encourage imagination in the child. That's a bad thing, and they would never get on and find a job.
And you became a writer.
Yes. It's like that Victoria Wood line where she said, "Oh, we didn't send him to university because we thought he'd get better lunches in an office." It was a bit like that. So I was a bit clandestine, and I kept a lot of books hidden from my parents. And equally, they gave me some of their grandparents' books, which are really not permissible today, which are children's books. I have Tiny Tim in Giantland had this terrifying illustrations of racial caricatures all the way through the book, which I still have it, but I don't want to get it down on the shelf. It's horrible.
It's like some of the Tintin books have to be covered now because you can't.
Oh, do they?
One Tintin in the Congo you're not allowed to have out on the shop floor. Because of.
Yes, because of what Arthur. So I've got a full set of the Arthur Mead Children's Encyclopedia. Anybody know this? And there's always a whole list of things that are coming up for covers, for coverage in the end of each chapter. And one of them is this: next, the cheery black folk of Africa. Cheery. And then it's next to the right way to slide. And how to knit a pot for Empire Day.
As you should be, as we all should be.
But then all the London books, so. And, you know, you kind of let go of some of them, because an awful lot of the books now are retreading old books. And you go, really? Are we going to do the, August 1941 again? You know,
Again.
So many times. Although, having said that, Jerry White's book on the Blitz in London is phenomenal. And it's way too much detail, but it's you can pick and choose and enjoy.
Well, talking of like too much detail, not a lot of detail, there's a lot in this book, like so much. Like, every line is like a factoid or a quip or a joke. Like, you must have done extensive research, but like, I guess that's been coming for years as you've been researching all of your books.
I kind of didn't have to do that much research. It was in my brain. But what I did need to do was kind of put it up to date, because a lot of this was absorbed when you're younger, and the things, they stick with you when you're a child. You know, they're you learn these facts about monumental buildings, and then when you go back to them, they're wrong.
Yeah.
They are simply wrong, and an awful lot of myth was incorporated, particularly during the Middle Victorian period and Late Victorian period, when you suddenly get the rewriting of English history in a kind of romantic, chivalrous style. And so I had to kind of pick it all apart and go, okay, let's be serious about this and look at the root of it. What was quite good about that was, I thought, well, first of all, I can't write a book on it now, because anything I write down, an academic is going to go, well, that's wrong. And I did do an event which was about London history, which it turned out the audience was entirely academics. But the organiser had neglected to tell me, and it was disastrous. So I thought, but be more careful. So what I thought was, what if I filtered it through my characters Bryant and May? First of all, they can make it rude and opinionated, and then kind of they can pull out connections which, if you were just an invisible voice, overseeing an overlord of the whole book, it would jar, and you would go, wait a minute, what? You've just jumped from talking about Piccadilly Circus to Burlington Bertie, and why? But knowing the way their brains work,
yes,
I could jump around and do naughty things.
You know their brains at this point very, very well.
Quite well, yeah.
Almost too well?
No, I've just started a new one.
Are you allowed to say that? Is that...
I'm allowed to say it to this lot.
We're all friends here, it's fine. I just want to say, because this is an event both for Chris and for you guys, so if at any point anyone has any questions, please do jump in. This is what's been, it's like a therapy session.
Only nobody gets better.
Just get different, that's okay. So the research that you've been building on it for years and years, it was a lot of academia, but was it also kind of physical? Did you retrace steps in London and stuff?
Totally. And sometimes you would deep dive into something. There was this annoying thing called the 40 footsteps, which drove me mad. And it was to do with a duel that took place over a beautiful woman, and both men died, and then the footsteps never went away, and they permanently burned in the grass, and Byron visited it, and it's on the UCL campus. And you can still go there, and it's still a bit of a bare patch of earth. But of course, sadly, it's all rubbish. But it took me many goes to get to the
just walking around,
because everybody keeps adding. That's the problem. The Bleeding Heart Yard. You know, everybody throws their tuppence in, and then Dickens comes along and adds a great chunk of lurid nonsense around the whole thing. And he goes, "Oh, it must be right because Dickens said it." So,
and we believe that.
And we believe it, and we kind of, and also you accepted my parents. My dad used to come out and it was rubbish that wasn't true.
But I think you picked up on that in the book when you said that London is not one London, it's everyone's individual Londons kind of amalgamated together. Because it is a spiritual state more than it is a physical state.
Very much.
I think, anybody else here originally from London as well? Are we from all far away? Like, how do you feel about London in this way?
I love London.
Hey, Jack.
This is my hello, Chris. Hello. I just love London. It's
It's
me.
magnetised.
I was born here, and that's it. You know.
There's a gap though. We noticed it the weekend. There's a gap. We were in town to see a movie and then go for a Chinese meal, routine. And it was so crowded. It was so insane. And there were two groups of tour guides going in both along the pavement in opposite directions. And you couldn't see the buildings, you couldn't really do anything except walk in the road.
Sorry,
And I thought,
could you speak, get the mic
sorry,
a bit closer?
there you go.
Because we can't hear everything back here.
Okay, how's that?
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Um,
A bit more forceful.
Yeah, always directing me. All my life, I've known him since I was 21. Yeah, and it was just so crowded that I thought, well, the very thing that I like to see most in London is invisible right now because it's just a sea of people. And this chap who just spoke out, Martin, and we went for a walk during the lockdown in the pouring rain, and we wanted to see the London buildings without anybody around them. So, I mean, obvious things like Westminster Abbey, but you never normally see them without crowds in front. So we started walking around and got to Leicester Square, and it was so forlorn, wasn't it? Do you remember? And they had put these very tragic movie star statues around. And one of them was Mr. Bean sitting on a bench in a surgical mask.
An actual okay, there we go.
Somebody put
Put it
a
on the
mask
cuff.
And it was so I said, there's one place where we can get a meal. I know, it's the Japan Centre on Panton Street, will be open in the basement. So we went down there, and there were these Japanese guys, and they were cooking out katsu and all sorts of noodles, and it's great. And they said, yeah, we're desperate, and we're soaking, and we're frozen. And they said, you can't eat it in here. So we went out and we stood in a doorway of some club, didn't we?
Under the comedy centre.
Under the comedy centre.
Under the comedy centre.
Eating out of a foil container with a spork. And I said to him, we used to eat at the Carlton in Cannes. But kind of in London, in a way, you don't mind. I mean,
No, it's part of like the process. It's modern Londoners. You
Yeah.
expect it almost now.
Yeah.
Because it has changed. But even like 50 years ago, you'd been eating out of like a newspaper, rolled it up, and then with your fingers.
well, there weren't any takeaways. 50 years ago, there weren't any takeaways.
You would have gone to the P, whacked them out the sea, and then eat that.
Yeah.
That's stereotype.
If you wanted spaghetti, apparently, you had to go to Harrods to buy spaghetti. But there were, there were mixed ethnic restaurants around the city, but people didn't really, after the war, they didn't know how to eat out. It had been a strange men's preoccupation because they went from London by horse to do business somewhere, they stop at Coaching Inn, therefore the menu was tailored around them, red meat, beer. And it wasn't really until the 1910s that anybody thought, oh, women might like to eat as well, and started putting other things on the menu.
A vegetable.
Vegetables or anything that isn't just a slab of meat. And the trouble is with that, you start, oh, that's interesting. Oh, I found this book by Philippa Puller called Culinary Desires or something like that. It's a great book about London food. And then you start to read that, and then you spiral off, and then a few days later you go, where was I? Oh shit, I've written all this stuff that isn't usable.
Well, how much did you, so obviously you put a lot into this, like how much did you leave out, like, are there like 3 more books?
Yep.
Should we keep going?
Well, when I did the Book of Forgotten Authors, I covered 99 authors. There were 400 when I started.
But you threw bits into that, you threw like as much as you could into that book as well. There were like tidbits everywhere.
Yeah, because the publisher wouldn't let me say, it's got to be 99. Just, people will be bored after 99. So I was like, yeah, let's get that one
But
in.
even like a brick. I once told Ken Foley you could kill people with his books. I didn't mean to say that to his face, but I did work for him, so it was semi-okay.
Okay.
But that's the thing, is, what, with that book specifically, what was if you could pick one of your favourite moments or authors from that section people have forgotten about, who would you kind of lament on?
Forgotten people. Oh God. Well, Norman Collins, I think, is astonishing.
Yes.
He's forgotten because there was a snobbery about him, because he was quite populist, but he could also write passionately and very moving. And so he wrote "London Belongs to Me," and Bond Street Story, but there's an incredible one. Oh God, somebody help me out here. Great Norman Collins book.
Three Friends.
Three Friends. Three Friends. It's heartrending, and they're people, they go around the country selling things, and it's dying. It's all dying, and this man is tasked with going to the north and selling a new type of hot water bottle. And when he gets home, his very loving wife, she says, what have you been doing? What have you been selling? And he shows her, and she explains to him why it doesn't sell. Destroys his life. But he's a great one. He's a great one, and Alexander Barron, I think, is astonishing. People don't know Alexander Barron very much. His name is Baron Cohen, and he dropped the Cohen because of the war. And there's The Low Life, which is about dog racing. And there's just looking up, there's half a dozen knockout, but they're all about low life East End. And there's one about how gangs were formed in the 1930s in the East End.
There are still gangs today as well. Like, things change. I think, like, structures change, but people don't necessarily change. The heart of, like, a lot of people, half of Greenwich is still run by the mafia, let's say. Technically, which shouldn't probably say out loud, but there we go. Like pubs and institutions, because it kind of, I guess, came from those like grassroots and it was businesses.
Well, I think the one thing that comes out of the Alexander Barron book is, and it's called King Dido. There you go, King Dido. It's about a guy who grows up on the corner of two streets, and the two streets have a war with each other, and they meet in the corner pub. So every now and again, there's a knifing in the pub, and they elect him to be their, arbitrator, and he doesn't want to be. He becomes a reluctant gang boss, and he's a peaceful person, and it's incredibly powerful book because it goes through 50 years. But, these are books that are out of print except by specialist publishers, so you have to poke around and find them.
Charity shops are really good for like
Yeah.
specialist charity shops. There's that whole street on Charing Cross Road of like niche individual books.
There's not many left now.
There's
Turning into bubble tea bars. 'Cause we all need more bubble tea.
It's only your 5 a day, right? At this point.
I do go to the Bloomsbury Book Fair, which is every
Yes.
other Sunday, still.
Yeah.
Although it's a dying trade, and you look around the stalls, the people there are quite old, and they're clearing out their stock now. And I think I mentioned in there, excuse me, I was looking for a book on medieval London, and there was this brilliant book, and I said, oh, this is like huge, it's got these illustrations. I said, how much is this? And he said, well, I'm going to have to charge you £20. Great, thank you. And I thought, I'm going to lunch, and this thing was
Sizable.
Yeah. So I said, okay, well, I'll take it. I get halfway across the floor, and he calls me back, and I think, oh God, he's found out it's like 1,200. And he said, sorry, it comes with the other volume. And I said, but that's early London, and I don't need that one. And he looked at me very angrily and said, you cannot split the set. So I took them both.
Good. Did you use both of them in the end?
Yes, I did, actually.
See, he knew. You didn't know. He knew.
Yeah.
If you could bring one thing back from a kind of an older golden age of London into this modern day and age, what would you, or if not you, what would Bryant or May bring back?
Well, I mean, other than sort of rickets or something. Let's think, what would it be? God.
That's a niche choice.
No. I am a niche kind of person.
You can't tell.
Let's think. Well, actually, there was an awful lot of services which are no longer available. People just like mend your umbrella instantly, or stop the spokes sticking out of it in the rain. Little odd things which were very useful. I do remember when I was younger using the Daily Telegraph Information Service, where you phone them up and then they would get a team of experts to answer your question in 5 minutes and call you back. If only there had been the internet, you think. But apparently it's still going, but now it charges like a tenner or something.
Oh yeah. most phone calls I think now charge a tenner. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, a coffee is £8 round King's Cross. So
This is the hill that I would die on. If you can spend £8 on a coffee, you can buy £8 for a book.
exactly.
But to be fair, the book industry did very, very well in lockdown. It was one of the
Yeah.
most surviving, which is amazing. And you've published a whole library of books at this point. I think we're on 40 something.
I don't know
still
what it is
going.
now. I think we might be tipping into 50 now. Because I've delivered. See, I'm working 2 years ahead of you guys, so
Yes.
I'm 3 books ahead.
Are they all different? Are they all connected in the
They're all
same maybe
different.
series? Are they all different?
So
You jump around quite a lot.
yeah,
Genre.
my publisher. I just watch his head sink into his hands as I say, I've changed genres again. I was like, oh no. So I've done my medieval epic,
Yeah.
about which my US agent said, I've only got one word for this book. Yeah. And I said, well, it's medieval. What do you expect? And he said, well, our editors aren't going to want to read about that kind of stuff. So there's that. That's waiting in the
That's an
wings.
opinion.
It's just an opinion, isn't it? It's
Everyone's
just
got opinions.
US book sales, you know. Hell.
Who needs those?
One is the 3rd volume of memoirs,
Yeah.
Word Monkey. And it's finished, delivered, agents that loved it. Editors working on it. And there's the Bryant and May, which I'm working on right now. But there's also a complete book of short stories coming from 84 to the present day. Not so much a book as furniture. It's enormous.
A coffee table.
Yes, break a coffee table. And it starts in 1984 and it comes up to the present day, and it's called Total Midnight. And my editor looked at it and he said, because he realised it went back to 84, and he said, you know, these days I have a sensitivity reader.
Yeah.
So he said, there's nothing in this that's going to come back and bite me in the ass, is it? I said, actually, I don't think so, because we genre writers were a bit ahead of the curve on all that
Yes.
stuff. You
Very
know,
much so.
We weren't, you know, Dick Francis or somebody. We weren't lagging. I mean, unnamed crime writers.
Many unnamed writers.
Yeah.
So,
Excuse me.
yeah.
So I came to London in '84. Is there something significant about '84 for you?
About 84.
It's a different time.
84. Well, Orwell, obviously. You know, if you pass that milestone, it's like going through 2001, isn't it? And not particularly, no. I mean, because I was always on the streets of London, I mean, there were these things called Red Rovers, or Twin Rovers, where you could go bus and tube for 5 shillings. Explain to a friend. So we used to go into the cinemas by walking in backwards as people were coming out, and because the seats weren't numbered. And I went to Berman's and Nathan's with a faked letter from my headmaster saying that I needed to be supplied with a gun. I was probably about 15.
How did that work out for you?
I got a gun and a holster. They gave it to me. And in fact, it was for a school play. I was going to use it for a school play, but I kept it.
An actual gun?
It was an actual, with a gun with a thing through them. Yeah. You could just walk in and just say, you know, can I have a gun? Yeah, all right. Is that letter from your headmaster? Yeah.
Looks official.
Yeah,
Pen and
looks-
paper.
No headed paper.
It's in the back
And of course, you could walk
postcards.
into anything. You could just walk
Conviction.
off the streets. There would probably be a commissionaire with one arm on the door, because after the war, that's what they did with a lot of
Yes.
injured people. They put lift people and doormen.
You could just ask for guns.
Just what have you got?
What
that I
else
can
did you
take?
ask for? A whole
I
shopping
just,
list.
we would go on. We would never nick, actually, but it was a great time. And
You
then
didn't need to, apparently.
didn't really need to, no. And then Channel 4 asked me to do a piece about London and set the cat amongst the pigeons a bit accidentally, because they didn't ask to see it in advance.
Channel 4. Oh.
Yeah,
For
it's
BBC.
early days of Channel 4.
Okay.
I basically suggested to parents they should let their 9-year-old children run loose in London by themselves.
I was doing that.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Just,
I got hate mail for 3 years from that.
that's not bad considerably. Like,
Yeah,
it's
that's
not bad. It's bad.
swings and roundabouts.
Exactly. Everyone's got an opinion. It's fine. But in theory, kids should be allowed, not like necessarily run wild, but like allowed to go and explore London. That's what I was doing for years.
Yeah.
Kind of just walking around.
I mean, basic ground rules.
Yeah,
And,
I mean,
and
yes.
obviously a modicum of common sense, you know,
so
because
don't ask for guns in the streets.
don't hang around. So yeah, but I mean, there was a brothel there was a big
Many.
brothel in Soho.
Main Street.
In Mad Street.
Membership.
Won't ask. And it had apartments opposite, because I remember staying in them. And there were fights every night, but the fights were interesting because they were actually, because they were trans prostitutes, and it was mostly sailors wanting their money back.
This is the thing that, like, I think a lot of parents would like had sayings at judges about like don't go to this part of London, that part of London. Like my mum always said, the good time girls resided in King's Cross. I didn't know what that meant for several many years.
Good time, girl. Oh yeah. Well,
I
the
was like-
Piccadilly Commandos.
Yeah, now I keep saying they're not in King's Cross anymore. She doesn't understand what I mean, but
Well, we live in King's Cross, so.
they are still there.
No, I mean, all it is full now is for like muffin bars, you know, and trendy little
What's a
nice,
muffin bar?
you know, those places that sell little dainty tea
Oh
cakes.
gosh.
So that's about as close. Yeah, we don't have it's all, and yet newspapers still say, formerly CD King's Cross. They can't quite bring
Gotta
themselves
give it the
to
edge.
renovate. Yeah.
Chris, can I ask a question? Because you live in King's Cross and the story, the Bryant May stories are all set there. If I work in King's Cross, I'm walking around like, oh, that's where, you know, oh, we're at Camden Street, that's in that story, whatever. Are you confronted by your own characters as you walk around the streets from different stories? Because that would be a bloody weird place to be, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
Seeing goats everywhere.
That's a variation of the question that you always get asked, which is like, do your characters live in your head? And no, they live in my laptop. And
Like in separation.
it's total. I mean, I have to put boxes around everything, so that I've had a really bad day, and then I go and open this, and then there they are. And you know, it's kind of a drug.
It's like escapism.
It really, and it's a balm.
Yeah.
It's a very healthy
So
thing.
you find them like comforting like friends, like when you welcome you in.
Yeah, except when I kill one off.
Which you have to do anyway. That's fine. That's London life.
Yeah, but I've never. It's very odd doing a series because people get quite emotionally attached, and
Yeah.
you know, people come up and go, "You're not going to hurt so and so, are you?"
You're like, maybe.
Just did. Sorry.
But I think that's the testament to the writing, because one of the things I appreciated throughout the series was the honesty of the characters, and the fact that they grew older and they confronted that time in their lives when things were changing for them, but actually they still managed to do what they had to do. Was that something you intentionally, when you set out, wanted to convey with your characters, like the honesty of it, or just?
No, I was busy chopping and changing between styles and books, and I did this first book as a one-off.
Yeah.
And it was turned down by everybody. It was just turned down. And then my editor at Transworld went, I not only love this book, I think it's a series. So, and he's still my editor.
Oh, wow.
But I knew I kind of already knew the characters, because there's a class thing involved as well.
Yeah.
Because they've come up through the Met originally, or they've come up through specialist units. And my father was in a specialist unit, and he was very much like John May, and it's a very specific thing. But they were regarded as professionals, but not quite good enough to be accepted in the next level up. So the class thing ended up going in as well.
Do you find like you're more attuned to like one character or another, or like some of your side characters that you can just really get into better or worse? Or?
I do. I'm having trouble giving a couple of the younger ones things to do, because they're learners and they're listeners.
Yeah.
And what I've got is Arthur Bryant just being generally vile, but liberal. He's a liberal guy. He just knows his mind, and also he's been around long enough to be able to say terrible things about the Barbican in that book.
Not just the Barbican.
No, Yeah, I'm surprised I got away with a few of those things.
It's a character, it's fine.
Yeah, it's character, so you can
Artistic
make it
preparation.
opinionated. Yeah.
So, did any of your opinions sink into like their voices, just so you can get your kind of like sneaky
Oh,
jabs?
Yeah.
Such
Well,
as...
to the point where I've never listened to an audiobook of them because I don't want to be influenced by the voice.
Yeah.
And when I did my first memoir, it was recorded, the audio was recorded by an actor, and he was very plummy, and he phoned me up at home, and he was a bit actory. He said, I just want to get your voice, dear boy. And I thought, what are you doing? I'm from Greenwich. I'm from South London, and this isn't my voice.
No.
But so I've never listened to that one
Why did you want to jump into the memoirs? Because there were 2 memoirs and you said a third's coming. Why was that a kind of like shift that you thought was kind of...
either. It wasn't much of a shift because
shift is the wrong word, yeah.
Because you know, if you grow up in central London, your life is filled with stories. And
Yeah.
you're just telling stories all the time.
My friends think I have too many stories that I make up, but they're actually very true. But I just done things consistently because I grew up in North London.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because you made it up doesn't mean it's not true.
Also very true. They're true in here.
Yeah.
Just,
yeah. So no, I mean, there's always a truth. I mean, all the stuff in that book, there's the truths are explained,
Yeah.
and how the fiction got built up around the stories
Yeah.
is explained. But I was researching King Arthur, which is like a nightmare. You have to climb over all the American academics first of all, and then it's such well-trodden path, and you have to go off track
Yeah.
and find. But then with London, I didn't have to because I knew the off-track stuff.
Yeah.
So Greenwich for me wasn't the museum and the Cutty Sark. It was the scrapyard by the river,
Yeah.
where you had to walk down that terrifying narrow alleyway. Do you remember
Yes,
this?
I do.
And there was like great big magnets lifting tons of rusting metal just over your head. And I had to do that to get to school. And it was just... So those things, they kind of go in because they're more interesting.
Oh yeah. Do you have a favourite part of London? You can't say Greenwich.
No, I wouldn't say Greenwich actually. Yeah, well, I like Holborn a lot, and I like Lincoln's Inn Fields, and any place where you can hear rain falling on leaves in central London is special. And a lot of the churchyards are amazing, and of course the churches, people just, you forget. And we went into, where did we go in yesterday?
Next to Barnes.
Yeah, right next to Bath. The Great.
St. John's.
Bartholomew Great.
St. John's.
Bath's the Great. St. John, the St. John's Church.
Yeah.
And it's 1100, and there's no one in there. And it's got the Damien Hirst statue of the man holding his own flayed skin. And it's in gold. It's quite astonishing. And there's no one there, so...
It's 900 next year.
Is it 900 years next year?
Yeah.
Right. And can't be bothered to visit it. It's incredible, isn't it?
We've been there.
You've been there, of course you
We've
have.
been there.
We'll arrange a field trip and we'll go together. It's fine.
There you go.
You can take us on a tour of all the churches. We do a lot of churches.
I did do a tour of the pubs for one of the Bryant and May
As you
books,
should.
which was, I think, nearly killed my editor at the Independent. We stopped for a beer in each one, but we went into one. I think I mentioned it in the book, which is we were looking for this thing which is meant to be the dead centre of London, and it's called the Stone of London, and it's not the one in the cage. It's a flat stone disc in a floor, and it was where everything was measured from. So we looked for ages and ages, and we found it in a pub in Fleet Street. And we went in. I was about to give up. And we went in. Said to the barmaid, "Do you have a stone which is the dead centre?" It's like, "Do you have a pint of lager? Do you have a stone which is the dead centre of London?" And she went, "Yeah, it's over there under the carpet."
As in like under the...
Yeah, and it was there.
They just like covered it, not cared.
Yeah, because it has no mythology attached to it.
Yeah.
If a story has mythology attached, it sticks in people's minds, and then they can elaborate and they can own it.
Yes.
But a stone in a floor with no...
We should make one up now and make that like a
Yeah.
thing. If we all start a rumour about this, we'll like make it happen.
We
Yeah.
need to know which pub it is.
Sorry.
Write the book and find
We need
out.
to know which pub see
Yeah,
it.
I do not have forgotten, but it's towards the end near the Tipperary. Des, you'd know, wouldn't you?
Can't think.
Is it one of the backsides of the temple?
It's not. Oh god. Anyway, if I remember it, I'll post it on Twitter because it's not a very nice pub, but it does have that one special thing. I miss the fact that you go into Punch and Judy, and all the Punch and Judy puppets have gone.
Yeah.
They've taken them all.
Well, I just like I love puppets. That's
And go
great.
to Dirty Dick's, and all the cats and dogs have gone.
Yeah. But that's the problem with pubs. They're becoming too commercial almost these days, rather than maintaining histories.
Well, yeah, they don't care because.
No, like my local in Greenwich, they painted it during lockdown to a lovely, in inverted commas, white. So it feels like a beach bar, and I was like, I walked in and went,
Ooh.
I don't like this. And it was originally like an old red, like deep, kind of like warming, for what men would word, old man pub. But and then they've made it into this.
White.
Yeah, it was the
Yeah.
Rose and Crown
Oh, right.
next to the theatre, and it just.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I know, exactly. But there's one in King's Cross called the Racketeer, which I can heartily recommend, which was, I think, the Skinner's Arms. And it was bought by a community group. The people who run it all get a share. And because it's behind Doughty Street, or in front of Doughty Street, the name, the Racketeer, comes from Dickens. So
Yeah.
it's the guys who banged on, the kids who banged on pots and pans to distract you while somebody took your wallet. And it's the only pub I know in central London where you can book a drinking table. So it's very good if you've got somebody with you who's slightly infirm. You can guarantee you've got a seat.
Yeah.
And it's just a special little. I've had a couple of launches there, and I just hope it continues. But I'm sure lots of people are going because like pubs are normally on corners, which means they've got 4 floors and a basement. They're just going prime property.
Right,
So,
yeah.
so,
But at least a lot of pubs have tenure you can't change them for being pubs for the next 40 or so years.
yeah, and if you can prove that they're of communal use,
Yeah.
as a rule.
Oh yeah, we were fighting when they in lockdown, when we weren't going to open our pub again, we were like fighting as a community to get it open again because it was a hub for people to go to.
Yeah, yeah.
And I won't much of my quiz again, but like it's the small things in life.
They've actually
You want-
started listing pub interiors now.
Really?
To try and maintain them, so if they can find examples of pubs from certain eras, they're actually giving them listed status, which
amazing.
means you can't mess around with the interior and make
Yeah.
it bland and stuff. So
Well, if there was a Wetherspoons carpet book, there should be that. Like that's their standards.
Well, the Scottish stores,
Oh yeah.
when it was a lap dancing bar or pole dancing bar for quite a long time, but when it changed ownership, they pulled down all the plywood and they found everything. There's a Art Nouveau.
Yeah.
So they restored it.
Yeah. Which
It's
is
all been
amazing.
protected.
Yeah, as it should be. Like pubs are really like a community institution, and like even like the way you talk about namings of pubs in here, it's just fascinating. So you see these things every day. We don't really take it in necessarily why it could mean, and that's the beauty of
Rose
this
and
book.
Crown is a great one.
Yeah.
Rose and Crown is a great one because it's the generic
Yeah.
name for a royal pub
It's one of
because
the most common names in the UK.
they couldn't
Yeah.
keep up with the turnover of royal names.
Yeah.
So they just started calling them the sector.
Yeah, the broken arm and
Yes, the illegal arms deal.
Chris, I took, it's a bit name droppy, but I was working with Nancy Sinatra, and we were doing a thing at the Royal Festival Hall, and she said, can you take me somewhere interesting? So I took her to Fleet Street, and we went to the Cheshire Cheese, and I took all her band, they're all Californians, and we went for dinner at the Chop House. I didn't even think about it, they're all vegan. So we sat down, and the guys are going through the menu, and he goes, what's this steak and kidney pie? Is this a kind of faux offal? And I said, no, it's awful. So they all ordered lettuce. Basically, not everyone was too polite to move, but the thing about pubs was that Nancy goes, Jesus, this pub is 200 years older than my country.
Yeah, every now and again when I get annoyed with an American friend of mine, I say, yeah, well, your country's younger than my school. Winds up. But it's funny, the pub thing is that they've also got such individual atmospheres. There are certain pubs that you go, we won't go there between 5 and 9. it'll be full of those marketing people from around the corner. But after that, people from the estate over the road will be going, and then you have these different groups of people using the same place.
Which I love. I knew that I could go to the Rose and Crown at a certain time of the day and just find anyone that I knew sat around the bar, and they'd been there for about 4 hours, so it's fine. Trying to have a pint with them, and it was great. It was a community, and I think that's rarer in London nowadays than it used to be.
It's vanishing because they're opening onto the streets way more.
Yeah.
So the Seven Stars now goes all the way down the street, which was my little pub, and Gordon's Wine Bar, which has now got this vast outside area, which is just disappointing.
Yeah.
But I'll go to the Edgar Wallace. We still like the Edgar Wallace, and
That's why I like the Great, which is the Ian McKellen pub. Because it's so small, you literally couldn't expand it. So like, if you're there, you're there and it's nice. You just enjoy the pub for it being a pub.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's one that nobody knows about in the back of King's Cross, called the Sir George Shilley Beer. You get blank looks about this one because it's in the middle of a council estate that it defies finding it. But it's like a 3-minute walk from where we live, and it's a classic horseshoe-shaped coaching inn.
Oh, nice.
And they were using it for stand-up. It's owned by the Pleasance in Edinburgh, and they normally use it for the Edinburgh tryouts. So it has 2 big theatres in it.
Yeah. Oh, theatre pubs, I love theatre pubs.
But we can't, but I think I don't know whether it's gone now. It's suddenly, I'm not getting any mails from them, I was not saying it's since the pandemic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's enormous because it's a coaching inn.
Yeah.
It's a vast
It needs
place.
to be, yeah.
Yeah.
That's exciting. Does anybody else have any questions? I've been talking a lot tonight. Yes, sir.
I'm sure everybody here has their own vision of what Bryant and they look like. Are we allowed to know how you envisage them?
Yeah, I envisage them not like various producers envisaged them in the past. Actually, initially, I really liked the casting. Was 15 years ago at least. We had Michael Gambon and Derek Jacobi. And then Gambon got too frail and it didn't happen. One more recent producer said, this would be great for Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie. I wouldn't. In what world would that be great? I always thought, who did I put up for? The guy who was in Detectorists. Toby Jones. I thought Toby Jones was really good. And then, I don't know who for. Yeah, but you have to. One of the problems is if you're going to do something there's 20 books behind it, you have to think about longevity and running about, up and downstairs. So, in a way, it'd be better to get someone much younger and play older. And I used to work with Jude Law, and we always teased that. He said, one day I'll be old enough to play the lead. I thought that'd be great actually, because he'd be able to do the charging around. But one of the reasons for doing those characters was not to have to worry about the kind of action detectives that were around when I started it. They're not so popular now. But when I started it, there was an awful lot of biff bang smash. And I thought, no, I want somebody with a bit more erudition, drawing on their experience. And they're still drawing on it. Although Bryant has no idea what he is. But
Do any of us at this point?
no, well, today, yes. In the hold of a ship.
You forget though, I forget what time of day it is on the ship. It is quite lucky.
Easy.
You can forget like where you are, if you're not on the sea or not. We get a lot of requests to go out on the sea, which wouldn't be possible for several reasons.
We did go to the gunpowder plot thing at the Tower of London a few weeks ago, which at one point you get into a rocking boat with a VR headset on, which is, you are in a rocking boat in the visual going very close to London Bridge with all the houses on it at night, which was easily the best moment, which is
beautiful but uncomfortable. That reminds me of a lesser version of something you mentioned here about the Blitz experience in London Bridge back in the day. The Blitz experience.
Oh,
You
right,
went to the
yeah.
lift
Oh,
and it
God,
chunked,
yes. Oh.
and you were like in a just a box that just kind of slowly vibrated with bad sound effects, and you went down some floors and then you went into the museum. And it's probably the size of this hole actually. It was very tiny.
It was a shit museum.
I don't want to say that, but yes.
At one point, you were sitting in a corrugated tin hut
Just
with a very bad recording of the Blitz going on outside and Churchill's voice. And I thought, we're just stuck in here.
Yeah.
We've been left here.
the teachers wanted an easy ride, they just was like, go.
Yeah, but whereas there are very good days out in London still to be had. I mean, I think the Churchill War Rooms are fabulous, and the museum attached to it. I would cross some. There's some things I would cross off. No names, no waxworks. And that thing, that catches mice. That can go. Partly because people say to me, I must see that one day. I say, it's been on for 70 bloody years. What are you waiting for?
The sun to change. Anyone have any questions?
I'm cheeky. I'm a novice. My friends kindly invited me today, so I'm honoured to be here. I'm sorry if you already asked the question. Your main characters, Bryant and May, have they been inspired by real people in your life? You mentioned your dad earlier from May.
Yeah.
Is there any inspirations from your real life?
Yeah, and Arthur Bryant was my business partner. And to the point where I think book 4, there's a photograph of him, because I modelled him so closely on him. I mean, mainly physically, but there were just this way of lateral thinking, which is very, very important to me. I mean, my problem with, say, Agatha Christie, and I think she's a fine writer and she did an amazing job, but her books, she's got a different set of priorities, one of which is, when describing a room, she always has to describe the egress. It was a beautiful room with some stairs leading out onto the garden, which could not be locked from the inside. You've always got these sort of things. So every writer has their own, their peccadillos. And for me, I kind of found myself London was barging other characters out the way, because there was so much stuff around it. So, yeah, I think I've forgotten your question now. Yeah, that's the main thing.
So, has there anyone inspired you with Bryant? Like, is there somebody in your life that you pictured and thought, I'm going to grow my character based on them? Because often authors find inspiration from real life, don't they? Sometimes.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that they're all amalgam. Well, I mean, most authors will tell you that they're amalgams, and I think that's what you do. So I did this thriller. What was it? What are we now? Last year, I think, called Hot Water, and it was based. It's about some people who go on holiday in a villa, and secrets come out, and a terrible thing happens. And I based it on a trip that I made with those characters. And then I kind of panicked at the end and went, not based on anybody directly. And I've got friends phoning up saying, that's me, isn't it? It's me, that's me and stuff.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I think it's important to ground characters in real things. If you notice, Hilary Mantel does this great thing. When she's describing an event that she can't possibly know anything about, because it's not recorded, she will just add a detail that makes it completely real, like somebody with a bit of paper stuck on their foot. It's just, and it pulls you back into the moment. It's lovely.
What about the Maggie character?
Well, do we really want to open that box? Okay, well, there is another character called Maggie Armitage, who's a white witch and an ex-Playboy bunny, both of which she is, and was. And I use a lot of Maggie stories, and I have to tone them down, because they're just
such as
surreal. Okay, quick one. So she said, "Oh, I can't really come out now because I just had a problem." She said, "I thought I'd grill some rashers of bacon." And she's got one of those freestanding old-fashioned cookers with an eye-level grill back from the 50s. And she said, so I put the bacon on, and then I went to the shop for some cigarettes, and already I'm thinking, I don't know. And she said, well, amazing, is it caught fire? But it all turned out okay. I said, well, your kitchen is black, and it was pink. She said, well, yeah, but I'd left, luckily, on top of the grill, I'd left a plastic basin full of water with the washing up in. I was like, and it melted through the basin, and it put the fire out. Isn't that great? And then we had one 2 weeks ago. Here's a new Maggie story. I haven't told anyone. She comes around. This woman is 80 now. She's on and off the buses and charging around like crazy. She comes up and just goes, oh, look at this lovely meal. I want to take a picture of it. I go, okay, give me a camera. Oh, don't know where it is. So, well, I'll ring it. Or Pete rings it, don't you? And this guy answers and he goes, hello? He goes, there's someone answering Maggie's phone, but I can't understand what he's saying. I think he's got a funny accent or something. I said, give it to me. And he was a very broad Cockney. He's from New Zealand, so he couldn't understand the accent. So this guy goes, yeah, my Rottweiler found the phone on a park bench. And I can give it. I said, well, can I come collect it? It wasn't very far away. And he said, yeah, but I've sold it. I said, well, he said, the bloke hasn't come round yet to pick it up. So if you want to come round quickly now and get it before he turns up, you might want to give him a call first because he gets quite annoyed. So suddenly I'm in this bizarre situation where I'm going through this subterranean council block looking for this guy with a piece of paper with a number on it and a rock one. I get the phone, and cut a long story short, I get the phone back and I go back home and Maggie's sitting outside on the step and she goes, that's my phone. And I said, yes. I said, I got it back for you. She said, isn't it amazing? Things go away and they just come back.
That's beautiful. I don't know if we can go on for that. I think we should just end there. That was a beautiful, synergist moment. Yeah, we have been talking for an hour. It's the ghost, it's fine, don't worry. Thank you so much for joining us this evening and for the insights that are just beautifully, and now Maggie's my new favourite person. If anybody would like to buy any extra copies of the book, and I do implore you to because it is fantastic, the lovely Waterstones booksellers are up on the main deck selling copies of the book. The bar is still open, please go and drink. If you're happy to sign some books for people.
Yep, happy to.
If you get tired, I'll start signing them, it's fine. But please do join me in giving Chris a massive round of applause.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.